Hey, do you want to run AI automation powered by n8n locally with no monthly subscription fee? That's great. If you want a security hardening to reduce your cyber risk, that's even better. Today I'm going to show you a security-conscious way to deploy n8n in your laptop, scan it for vulnerabilities, and run the whole thing isolated in a virtual machine. Because if you're going to automate with AI, we need to elevate our GRC game. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Steve, and in my last video, I walked you through why I built the GRC News Assistant version 3, and I did a security risk assessment. What are the threat scenarios, and how can we buy down the likelihood and impact of a security incident, keeping a budget-conscious local installation in mind. If you haven't seen that video, there's a link in the description. Go check it out. This one is the pointy-clicky, pop the hood and show me how it works kind of video. And I think following along the steps in this project is a great addition to your portfolio. You can publish on GitHub, even if it's your first project ever. GRC News Assistant version 1 was mine, right? And here we are at version 3. You can then take that project and put it on job applications. Or just to contribute and network and learn in the community, giving yourself a stretch assignment in your career development plan. So we're going to be running n8n locally, as I mentioned, on a virtual machine. I'm running Kali Linux at a VirtualBox for that on my MacBook host. And we're going to put n8n inside a Docker container using a hardened image. I've got a YAML file to spin that up in my public GitHub. And we're going to scan it with Docker Scout to see what's actually running, doing everything with containment in mind. By the end of the video, you're going to have n8n running locally, so you can play with it, see what it can do, and you'll understand the security considerations and guardrails that you want to operate in. You'll, of course, be able to replicate the setup yourself, following along with the README and the GitHub instructions. So let's jump right in. You can find this project on my GitHub at CPA to Cybersecurity. And I'll scroll down to the installation area. There's a few prerequisites before we get installing. You need terminal access, so I've got Kali terminal to the right, and I've just made a directory to put this project in. A Notion account with API access, that's free, so I've got my free Notion account running the output of this tool, the GRC News Assistant database here. And to get the API key, you would just go to notion.so/myintegrations. I've got 2 here, and it's this guy right there. You also need an LLM API key, so I'll be using Anthropic and their cheapest model, Haiku, today, which is pretty reasonable. Network Chuck just dropped a really cool video using SSH to integrate n8n with Claude Code. And that way you can not be pay per use, but stay within monthly subscription fees if you have a pro plan. So that's something cool to check out, although more advanced than for another day. Today we're going to keep things simple. And finally, a Docker Hub account. So again, set that up for free, and we're going to use it later when we get Docker Scout running for vuln scanning. So I'm going to go to the Docker and Docker Compose installation instructions for Kali, and we'll get going. Do an update in step 1. Install prerequisites. Step 2. Add Docker's official GPG key as step 3. Add the Docker repository. Install Docker. Step 6, run Docker without sudo. Pipe this in. And verify the installation. Docker version 29.1.3 and Docker Compose version 5. Awesome. So now I can skip down. Next we get into pre-deployment security scanning. Docker Scout is included with Docker Desktop, but we're in Linux here, so we'll use the CLI. And we'll download and install Docker Scout. And authenticate with Docker Hub. I've already authenticated in advance, so it just says login succeeded with my existing credentials. When you run this for the first time, Docker's just going to prompt you for a username, type that in, hit enter, your password, type that in, hit enter. It's from setting it up earlier in the Docker Hub. And it should say login succeeded. If you run into any issues, though, just drop a comment and I'll help you out. So we'll keep going. We're going to get to scanning images and understanding that there are 3 here. The one that n8n resides in as an application, the PostgreSQL database, and Redis for caching, storing temporary execution data, and managing job queues. So we'll scan each of these containers and first get a quick vulnerability overview. See some highs popping up, no criticals, more highs, and no highs in Alpine, but 2 lows. We can filter by severity. So getting the criticals and highs here. The first one here is related to Excel, and it doesn't have a fix. Not fixed, not fixed. Fortunately, we're not using Excel in this version 3 of the News Assistant. Version 1, it would have had a problem. But we'll just simply use an avoidance strategy. In the context of our deployment, it's not something that's going to cause a problem. And then moving on to Alpine, there are some fixes. I think, though, let's just jump right into recommendations. So I'm going to find the recommendations with this command. And see what we get. For n8n, the latest app, we've got a recommendation here to refresh the base image, but a warning then that updating may result in breaking changes. Then a contradictory message that this version is up to date. So that's just Scout showing us available options. And since we're not the ones building this image, we're waiting on n8n to push an update. These highs we saw earlier are in n8n's application dependencies, not the base Alpine image. So nothing for us to do here. And then getting into Postgres, no recommendations. And Alpine, or Redis, no recommendations. So it's fairly common here. We're going to be deploying into our lab with vulnerabilities. But these are common types of issues, maybe waiting on official images to be released. And it's just our home lab with no sensitive data. And we're not deploying blind. That's the key here. We're within our risk tolerance for the nature of the work that we're doing. So let's keep moving. Now that we're comfortable with the containers, we're going to get the app up and running. And to do that, we've got to clone the GitHub repo. Do that here. And we're going to go into the workflows folder. And now create our environment file. To generate secure passwords for all of the elements of our deployment, we can simply copy and run this entire block of commands. That generated 4 cryptographically secure random values to paste into our env file. So let's do that. I'll copy these. And we'll open up with Nano as a text editor. Always want to be careful with key material, even in a low-risk lab like this. But we'll temporarily drop these in, these secrets, and put them into the env file. All right, I'll delete this thing. And I like to have these instructions for exiting Nano each time. Control X, Y, Enter. You can see I had to try this twice. Let's launch the thing. Docker Compose up D. There they go. Then Docker compose PS. We can see that they're running, they're healthy. Oh, one's starting.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
So I'd hit a snag there because I deployed this more than once. I was having a collision between an old environment file and a new one. I had to diagnose the logs and clear and restart. So you see I have a new terminal here, and let's just try it one more time. You won't have this issue if it's your first time setting it up. So Docker compose. And let's check on it. Healthy n8n, healthy Postgres, healthy Redis. So now we can open it in localhost 5678, which I have right here from an old instance, but let's just try it again. There you go. So the app is appearing and we can sign in. I've got some n8n credentials and I'll type them in now. All right, so n8n is up and running. We should now import the workflow and configure an Ocean database. So create an Ocean database, add these properties. You can see mine right here. So there's a title that's text, a URL that's a link, labels, and these other fields. That's ready to go. Now we'll import and configure the n8n workflow, which is a JSON file. It's right here. So I'll move this over beside, import from file. There it is. That file right there. Open it up. There we go. And I can walk you through these nodes and we can set them up and then run the thing. So schedule trigger is set to every day at 5 a.m. Each of these RSS feeds is ready to go. That's the Simply Cyber newsletter right there. Pretty simple. Sys advisories is right there. All of these nodes just come from hitting this plus button and search for RSS read node right there. This is an if node to check the publication date. So we're checking that the date is after or equal to today minus 7 days. That's because this is a weekly publication. For something that's more daily, 3 days, right? So we can configure this and change it to 1. I played with it a bit during the demo for demo purposes. Edit fields. This is taking the fields we're going to see on the left. I guess we should run this through first and just aligning them to be in the appropriate format and with the appropriate field names. Merge them all together. So that's just saying there's 4 inputs. It was the only configuration step there. Again, I would just go here and say merge node if I wanted a new one and configure the number of inputs. Easy peasy. Get rid of that guy. Get content is going to take a URL from the JSON package that's going to come to this node. Markdown. It was a stock node, and again, we're just taking the data package and converting it. Content guardrails. So here we're going to use stock guardrails to validate text against a set of policies, not safe for work, prompt injection, and sanitize it. And we need to put in our API key here, so we got to get some credentials going. So create a new one with Anthropic. I've pasted it in from my password keeper here. We'll save it and test it, and it works. Great. So those go into an encrypted database in the app now, which is good. You don't want to be hard coding creds anywhere, ever. And I've now got an Anthropic node here connecting with that credential from the encrypted credential database using Haiku. So we could toggle to other models that are more expensive, but I'm using this one for now. This prompt is from the Fabric project in Daniel Meeser's GitHub repo, but I've added some guardrails in terms of noting that this content includes RSS feeds and web pages, which is untrusted, and we want to watch out for hidden commands or prompt injection. And then it's just outputting the formatted text from that clean text pattern or prompt. Label and rate, same deal. I've modified the prompt to include my security parameters to try to filter for prompt injection, and also the labels that will be used to evaluate the content, making them GRC specific. Pretty straightforward. There's a code node that does some processing to help it get into an appropriate structure for the Notion database. And then there's the Notion database itself where we need to put in our credential. So let's make that. Notion API. I'll grab that from my Pastor Keeper and be right back. Give it a test. Awesome. And now let's run the thing. So everything's set up. We'll execute. And it works. So let's check it out. We'll go to our database page, which we can link to here. See what's going on. All right, we've got some new articles. B tier, A tier. No S's jumping out. And if I just scroll to the right here, published on December 11th and 12th, processed today, the 13th. And an explanation for the rating. Awesome. So there you have it. The workflow ran. The articles flowed into Notion. They're all labeled and rated automatically. And just to do a quick recap of what we covered here. So Docker vuln scanning with Docker Scout, a hardened container deployment, an AI-powered GRC news pipeline. It's all set it and forget it, running daily at 5 a.m. Check out the repo link in the description. And if you have questions, drop them in a comment. Thanks for watching and see you next time.